Hello everybody, Martin Radner here from Radner Law Group bringing you trial analysis. Today we're going to be discussing the interview with Becky Hill's co-author for her book, Neil Gordon. So she co-authored this book with somebody, Neil Gordon. He also seems to have played a large part in the self-publishing of this book. So they took his interview today and we will jump right into that very soon. But first, please like and subscribe to this channel. Let's keep this channel growing so we can continue bringing you this trial analysis. So before we jump into the interview, I just wanted to discuss something that I think a lot of people did not really pick up on. And that is that during the press conference that the Alex Murdaugh defense team had, and in their motion for a new trial, what they mentioned in that press conference was that Becky Hill was acting as a state actor. She was acting under the color of state law. And why did they kind of throw that in there? You know, it didn't seem like a lot of people picked that up. It didn't seem like the reporters asked about it. But the reason why they mentioned that is that that really opens her up to civil liability under Section 1983. And that is that a state actor who is acting under the color of state law is not allowed to infringe on an individual's rights, on the rights that you are given in the Constitution. So a person has constitutional rights, and if somebody who is acting under the color of state law, which just means they're acting in their official government capacity, and they do something to take away your rights, think police officers, think prison guards, think anyone who's acting in their official capacity, and that's called acting under the color of state law, and during that time, they take away your civil rights. They are opening themselves up to civil culpability under Section 1983. And that's what they're suggesting, that there may be a lawsuit here from Mr. Murdaugh suing Rebecca Hill as the court clerk in this case under Section 1983 because she was acting on the color of state law. And obviously if she was tampering with the jury, that would affect some of his serious, very important civil rights. So that was just something that they mentioned and that I just wanted to bring up. So let's jump into the interview with Neil Gordon. So the interviewer first asks him, well, what was your reaction? What was your reaction to this press conference and this motion that the entire world is just completely going nuts over because no one's ever heard of such allegations of jury tampering? So what's your reaction to this?
What's your reaction to what you heard from the defense today?
I was shocked. I worked with Becky for 6 months as both a friend and a colleague on the book. And we've had many discussions in writing the book about any kinds of conversations that she would have had with anybody associated. As Harpootlian mentioned, I mean, she has many different tasks. She's got to work with the judge, the media, the public, dealing with the food, dealing with defense attorneys and so forth. And very little with the jury. I mean, there is a chief bailiff that keeps their eyes on the jury at all times, and there's very little contact.
So his response is that, you know, he's shocked and he worked with her for 6 months and, you know, they had many discussions. And something that he mentions, kind of like as her defense, was that, you know, these allegations can't be true, or he didn't say that, but his suggestion was, you know, these allegations can't be so true because, look, there's a bailiff, there's a chief bailiff whose job it is to keep his eyes on the jury and to make sure that no one is doing these type of things. No one's even trying to do these things. So how is she even going to access the room if you've got a bailiff standing outside the room and there's no other entrances or exits to the room and that bailiff is standing there? How is she even going to have access to this jury? And it's kind of an interesting point. However, it's not, you know, it's not crippling. And the reason is that she's the court clerk after all. I mean, she can kind of very easily make up excuses why she needs to go speak to the jury. Maybe the judge told me I have to say something to the jury. Or, you know, the bailiff's her good friend who they work together all the time, every single day. And generally speaking, the bailiff, everybody who works in the court are all very good friends with each other. So if she says, hey, let me just look into the room, or let me just get into the room for a few minutes, I just need to, you know, do something or get something or whatever it is, he'll let her in. So it's not, you know, it's not as scary as it sounds. Like there's a bailiff standing out there with a guard, and no one is going to get into that room without, you know, without going through him first. You know, she's the court clerk. They're all good friends. It was certainly still plausible for her to be able to access that jury room and still do the things that she, you know, they allege that she did. Again, I'm not saying that she did. I'm just saying that the possibility is still there. So then, you know, the interviewer asks Neil Gordon, you know, did she talk to you about any of the conversations that she may have had with the jury while you're putting together this book?
So, in preparing this book, were there any conversations that you had with Becky about conversations she had with jurors during the course of the trial, including the foreperson who the defense is saying there were private conversations, allegations that they're on the Moselle property and they walked off together? They may have had a conversation in the jury room bathroom.
Well, Vinny, all that I know and that we put in the book, you mentioned Moselle. There was an order from the judge for there to be silence. There was no conversation to be had. So I asked her and said no conversation was had.
So his response essentially is that no, and the fact that there was an order to be, for there to be silence, and she couldn't have spoken to the jury, and I guess she told him that she didn't speak to the jury. But I mean, just think about it from her perspective. If you're really thinking that she is, plotting this all out, well, of course she's not going to tell her business partner that their entire business is premised on her performing these illegal actions. Of course she's not going to do that. So, the fact that she didn't tell him that she was having conversations with the jury about this, of course, she doesn't want him to know that. She wants it to seem, especially in the book, she wants it to seem that this was just a fair verdict. So, of course, she's not going to talk to him about the conversations that she had with the jury. So, then they get into a little bit of the motivation. What was the motivation behind her? Because the defense team said in their press conference that they kind of suggested that she had a motivation to come out and tamper with the jury because she was coming out with this book. And this book, in her mind, would only sell or sell as good if she had if there was a guilty verdict. And therefore, that was the motivation, that she wanted her book sales to do really well. She had speaking engagements and all these things, that in her mind was going to happen if there was a guilty verdict. If there's a hung jury, then, it's not as exciting book anymore. So, since this was her plan, so that was kind of the motivation behind why she tampered with the jury. And then, he also suggests that it can't be that this was his motivation. So Neil Gordon, wants to debunk this idea, and he says that, they didn't even meet until 3 weeks after the trial. So it couldn't have been that this was her motivation before, because otherwise she would have already had ideas to write this and met with him before the trial or before the trial ended. Why would she wait till 3 weeks after the trial? It seems that she just got this idea after the trial ended and say, hey, wouldn't it be a cool idea if we write a book about this?
What was the motivation that Becky had to get together with you to write this book? And was this the master plan before the trial started? Was it plotted that this was going to be the big retirement nest egg?
Oh, I don't know about that. I didn't actually meet Becky until 3 weeks after the trial.
Now, again, of course, if you go into her mind and you say, look, this was her plan the whole time, then of course she's not going to go to this Neil Gordon before the trial starts. She doesn't want him to think that she's got any, funny things up her sleeve. So of course, if this was her plan the whole time, then an intelligent person would specifically wait a few weeks after the trial and then pretend as though this is a great idea. Let me put out a book about this trial and, we'll do it that way. So, the fact that she didn't go over to him until 3 weeks after the trial doesn't mean that she wasn't planning on doing this the entire time and that she just didn't actually take action until after the trial. I think that, person planning this and plotting this would wait, and certainly to make it look like she had no ideas about doing this before or during the trial. So, again, that doesn't really debunk the idea that she really had this plan the whole time. So, and then the other reason why her partner Neil Gordon, her co-author, feels that it couldn't have been that this was her motivation is because she didn't partner with this tremendous big publishing company like Simon & Schuster. It's not like she got this big advance from this publishing company like Simon & Schuster, to put out this book. So, don't you think that if this was her plan from the beginning, then she would have, partnered with somebody big like that?
You asked my reaction. I was pretty upset at what Harpootlian said was the motivation that Becky had. Last time I checked, Simon & Schuster did not send us a check for $200,000. The Gordons and the Hills put up $30,000 of our own money because we felt this was an interesting story to tell. So right away, Vinny, for that to be motivation for her to get a book deal is completely false right there.
That doesn't convince me too much. And the reason for that is that why do you need to partner with these big publishing companies? Why would a person want to? And the reason generally is because nobody knows who you are. Why should anybody buy your book? They don't know who you are. You haven't been marketed properly. You don't know how to market yourself. You need these big companies to go and get your name out there and get everyone excited about the content that you're putting out. So, how many crime books come out a week? So why would anybody buy your book? So of course you want to partner with these big publishing companies. But in this situation, I think just the opposite is true. Here, you've got the entire world fixated on this trial. The entire country, at least, is fixated on this trial. Everyone's watching. You've got hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of people that are watching this trial. And now you're the court clerk and you let everybody know, oh, by the way, I wrote a book. What do you think is going to happen? Everyone's going to buy those books. They're going to fly off the shelves. You don't need a big publishing company to help you with this. If you self-publish, you're going to be wonderful. You're going to be great. Amazon's not going to, and they're not going to run out of copies of your book to sell. Don't worry about that. So, the fact that she didn't partner with a big publishing company, I think just the opposite. These big publishing companies, who takes all the profits? They mostly go to the publishing companies. Of course, the author gets, some part of it also, but most of the profits are going to these big publishing companies. And if you're in a position where the entire world is fixated on this trial and you're the court clerk and all you got to do is let the world know that you wrote a book, go on a few interviews, go on a few TV stations and let everybody know that you put out a book, that's all you need to do. And the books are going to start flying off the shelf and you'd much rather keep all those profits in your back pocket as opposed to giving it to a big publishing company. So the fact that she self-published with Neil Gordon, and the fact that they put up their own money, it doesn't really convince me. In fact, I think it actually could work against her. Okay, so now they talk about what is her character like? What is this person like? What is Becky Hill like? Is she really this nefarious evil person, or is she a good, nice person? So here is where Neil Gordon says that it was just an honor and it was a pleasure to work with somebody with such integrity and character.
And it was my honor and pleasure to work with somebody with such integrity and character as someone like Becky Hill.
And then he also says that she's going to, the way that he knows Becky is that she is going to answer all of those allegations, truthfully.
But I am told they are going to put out a statement in the near future. And one thing I know about Becky Hill, she will answer each and every one of these allegations truthfully.
And if I know anything about statements, in that statement, they're not going to be answering specifically each allegation. They're probably going to be saying, something very generic, very general. It's not like what you think it is. We stand in our position, and we will wait, to hear, we'll wait to fight this in court or something like that. So, I mean, if I had to imagine, that's kind of what the statement's going to sound like. But, he's kind of standing behind her character, and therefore, really, what can we walk away with this interview? So I think to the substantive issues in this case, in this situation, these allegations, we're not really getting much from this interview. The fact of what she told him, her business partner, that's not going to tell us that, oh, she really was not involved in this at all. Okay, you got your business partner standing up for you, which is good. Of course, he should do that, and he wants to do that. He doesn't want this to hurt the book sales, and and it could be that he does believe in her character, and it could be that she does have integrity. And in fact, I would say that it seems from all the reports, from everybody who's ever known Becky, and it's a small town, that everyone has been saying very nice things about her. That she's a wonderful person, and she has good character, and she has integrity, and would be very surprising that if this thing was true. And that may be true. It may be true that she had a very good character, and it could be that nobody would ever imagine in a million years that she would do it. But the bottom line is that every single person has a devil inside of them, and if you can control that devil, then you can always be known as someone with integrity and good character. But if you can't control that devil, and if that devil gets some idea into your head where you can think about making millions and just sailing off into the sunset, it might be hard to not listen, no matter how good of a person you are. So I think at the end of the day, yes, she seems like she's a very nice and very good person, someone who performed her jobs faithfully for many, many, many years. And the question is just going to be, did that little devil get the better of her in this situation? And according to those jurors who signed those affidavits under oath, if these things happened, according to them it did, then that devil won in this situation, and she can be facing, the destruction of her career because of it. So it's not a great story. It's unfortunate, and if this is really all made up, then it's unfortunate that she has to go through all this and to fight this now. So again, I'm not taking sides. I'm not saying that she for sure did it. I'm not saying that the jurors are for sure lying. I'm not saying anything, but the allegations are very serious, like we said, and we will see most likely by an evidentiary hearing whether whether this stands up to muster, stands up to cross-examination, and see how the jurors perform under cross-examination, if their stories change, and we'll see if she takes the stand. We'll see if she pleads the fifth. I mean, all these questions nobody knows the answer to until we actually have that evidentiary hearing. So there's still a few days left for the prosecution to file the response and to this motion for a new trial, and then we'll see what the judge ultimately decides to do. I think, again, I would be very shocked if there's not an evidentiary hearing on this case. The only other option would be if the judge feels so compelled by the affidavits by themselves to order a new trial just based on the briefs alone. But I think it's more reasonable that there will be an evidentiary hearing on this case, and those jurors will be called to testify, and perhaps Becky will be called to testify, and we'll see what happens at that point. So we will see what happens then. Please again like and subscribe to this channel, and we will continue bringing you this trial analysis.